Okay, so in this section, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about writing the methods section. Now, I realize that some of you have done the methods, but I want to elaborate a little bit more on writing the methods section. So the methods is like a recipe. I think I've talked a little bit about this earlier on this in this session, but I should be able to read your methods clearly. I should not have to contact you and ask you how you did these methods, or how you're going to do the study, and you're going to tell us how you do it. Be very precise, be very logical. And the other thing is, think of all the details. Now, some of you might write and be like, well, you should know, I do this. Sometimes I think, well, somebody should know how to do these steps. But think about it. If I'm following a recipe, if I'm following the procedure and the methods, I don't want to have to call the author and say, okay, did you warm them up? And what did you do for their warm up? And what exercises did you do? And how long? So think through the methods section as very, very detailed. You should have in your methods participants, materials used, procedures, and statistical analysis. And I'll go through each one of these on the next few slides. So your participants, tell us who it is that you are going to study. Now, um, what you might want to be careful of, which I see students do this, is they have read other papers, so they say, well, there were 29 people. Well, when you haven't actually done the study, you cannot say that there were 29. You're just going to say the study is going to recruit 29 individuals, males and females, college age, between 18 and 22 years old. All right. You're going to tell us how that was, how you're going to collect. It's going to be a random sample, a stratified sample. So think about the sample techniques that you've learned about. And then any restrictions. So participants who have a heart murmur are going to be excluded from the study, or participants who've had 5 concussions are going to be excluded from the study. So you're going to have some restrictions on the people that you're going to be recruiting. So here's a couple of examples. So I've got 27 students from the University of Calgary. All right, so in this instance, in these examples, this is data that's already been collected. So I want you to think about, if you were doing this experiment, you wouldn't say you had 12 or 15. You're going to say students from the University of Calgary, ranging from 17 to 43, will be recruited for this experiment. All right, so they will be randomly assigned to 3 probe type conditions and informed consent was obtained. Okay, so notice that if the study hasn't been done, you're going to say what the age range is, how they're going to be recruited, and how they're going to be randomly assigned. All right, so in the next one, you've got 10 healthy university students, 18 to 24 years old, they've volunteered, etc. So there's a couple of examples. So if you need to pause on this slide to look at how they write their participant examples, this would be a good moment to pause. Okay, the materials used. What did you use? So some of the readings that I've done um, for you guys is that, give me again details. If you're going to measure body composition, how are you going to measure body composition? What tool are you going to use? If you measure agility, how are you going to measure agility? What test are you going to use to measure agility? If you're measuring strength, how are you measuring strength? Are you doing 1 repetition max? Are you doing a warm up before you do that 1 repetition max? Are you using a polar heart rate monitor? All right, so be very, very detailed, very, very specific. That's what I'm going to be looking for. And again, here's some examples. So again, so this is a great place for you to potentially pause and read through these and see if when you put your method section together, if it's going to look just like this. Okay, procedures. This is how the research is going to be done. So again, this is a recipe, so when you look at a recipe, for instance, it tells you here's the ingredients, this is how much of the ingredients you need, and then the next section of a recipe tells you what to do with those ingredients. So think about the procedure as what to do with the materials and the tests and the people that you have now recruited. So just lay it out step by step. I say step by step, but ultimately you're going to be writing it in paragraph form. So again, you guys have read research articles. You see how they write the methods section. That's your example of what a method section looks like. If you are not doing an experimental study, but rather historical or reviewing literature, tell me how you went about finding those data. What databases did you use? So if your introduction, your literature review is very sparse right now, in other words, you don't have a lot of references, that means you aren't looking in the databases, and I need you guys to look in the databases. Here's procedure examples. Again, a great place to pause so you guys can read through that and see how their procedures are written. All right, and then statistical analysis. Tell me, what are you going to do here? So I am actually going to be looking for how are you going to analyze your data. So throughout this course, you've learned about t-tests, you've learned about ANOVAs, you've learned about correlation, you've learned about regression, you've learned descriptives. So you need to be very specific when you tell me how you're going to analyze the data and what is it going to look like. So here's a couple of examples. A paired t-test, samples t-test was used to analyze differences in means between pre and post test. Significance was tested at p less than 0.05. Pearson correlation and ANOVA was used. So if you cannot remember what analyses we've covered, you might need to go back and just review that as you develop this section. So that is writing the method section. Again, use your research articles that as references. So if you're just looking at the abstract, you're going to need to get the actual article, and you're going to need to look at how a method section is actually written in an article. So hopefully that helps and gets you guys going.